Welcome to another episode of Nigeria Decides 2023, coming to you live on Trust TV from Nigeria's capital here in Abuja. Nigerians as early as 8 in the morning today turned out en masse to elect 28 governors and 993 legislators who will represent them across the 28 states where elections are holding. Indeed, across all the 36 states where elections are holding. Tonight, we will bring you an update of how the election is progressing in some parts of the country, indeed, throughout the country. We'll also have in the studio guests to analyze what is going on across various states, whether or not the elections are meeting the expectations of Nigerians, and how can we continue to improve our electoral processes. As the program progresses also, you, our valued viewers, will also be able to make your contributions when our lines open. But before we go into all that, we will take a moment and bring you reports of the election so far. Stay tuned.
It was not the regular day in the state, but one that offered voters the choice of choosing who becomes the next governor of Adamawa State. Senator Aisha Binani of the All Progressive Congress, APC, is fighting to unseat Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri of the People's Democratic Party and the incumbent governor of the state. Shortly after casting her vote in Yola, she commended the conduct of the exercise and is hopeful of a positive outcome.
So I'm confident in both the electorates and the officials of the INEC, because this is not the first time they are conducting election. We just concluded the presidential and national assembly election, and it was peaceful and it was a credible election. So I have confidence in them.
If you want any problem.
On the flip side, Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri is optimistic of continuity as he casts his vote in his home residence of Karchinga Madagali local government area. This is the first time since 2014 when Boko Haram invaded this town, and the people of Karchinga are happy to participate in an exercise of this nature as life gradually returns to normal in their community.
The environment is safe, everywhere is calm, and the security has improved. And we thank Almighty Allah, we thank government, and we will continue to encourage the security agency for doing their job. And I think I'm happy for my people that they are back to their place of abode. Perfect. I will win the election. I will get the day.
Voters are positive that the poll will be free and fair as they wait patiently for the outcome of the election. From Yola, Aaron Asahel, Trust TV News.
Well, this is one of the voting centers across the metropolitan city of Kano, where hundreds of voters have already turned out to vote. Even though the election has not started yet, it's too early for that. But I can see behind me here are the election officials distributing both sensitive and non-sensitive materials to the electoral officers that are going to take care of all the polling units that are within this primary school in Nasarawa area of Kano Metropolis. But at the moment, many people have come out, have seen so many people sitting down. They are waiting for the electoral officers to start distributing the electoral materials so that voting will commence in this place. I have also visited a number of places. It's surprising. This is one of the few places that I've seen many people that turned out. There are other places where I couldn't see anybody. People have not started coming out. Likewise on the streets are deserted, but there are also presence of security officials everywhere you go across Kano Metropolis. Now, we are following the situation to see how it's going to start, but it's too early for voting to start. But at the moment, any moment from now, voting is going to start across the state, especially places where electoral materials have already arrived. Well, as of this moment, election is going on across Kano State. But then, like I reported earlier, there are some violence there and then. Earlier, we reported to you that there is violence in the polling unit of the NNPP gubernatorial candidate Abba Kabir Yusuf, where some thugs attempted to disrupt the process. And on the other hand, these people are accusing the chairman of the All Progressive Congress, Abdullahi Abbas, of sponsoring thugs to disrupt the election process because they are in the same ward. It's just a difference of polling box. So this crisis, we have seen how thugs was actually pursuing a police officer with a knife, and then we have also seen how the supporters of the NNPP are pursuing supporters of the APC from the units of NNPP gubernatorial candidate, and we have also seen how supporters of the APC chairman are equally pursuing supporters of the NNPP in their polling units. So these two crises have happened, and we don't know what will happen in the next couple of hours.
As my constituency is concerned, I am confident that at the end of the day, the INEC is going to conduct a credible election. However, we have some issues of violence. Even here in my constituency, I was reliably informed that the APC chairman, who has been a notorious party leader, has also today brought so many thugs into the voting units, and they have perpetrated violence. They have conducted themselves in an unruly manner, and that has been his character, which we, for quite a long time, we informed the security agencies as somebody that feel that he is above the law. And you pressmen, before I came, have seen by your own naked eyes what happened, the number of thugs he borrowed.
In election, you have small crises here and there, but for so far so good. And the police are trying seriously. The turnout is perfect. Everything is going perfectly. We appreciate the way people are behaving. And the security agencies, what they are doing is recommendable. They should be calm and vote for the candidate they want.
We have learned that some arrests were made across the state. We learned that the managing director of Kano State Transport Authority has been arrested for disrupting election in Gomaja area of Kano Metropolis. We also heard that there are crises not only within Kano Metropolis. I mean, there are crises outskirts. We had a report of crisis in Rimingado local government, in Rano local government, in Sumaila local government. I mean, in so many places, pocket of violence are being reported, and the police spokesman is saying that they are making some arrests of people who are perpetrating this crisis. Now, also, any moment we do know that the NNPP presidential candidate Rabiu Musa Konkoso will be addressing a press conference, and I want to believe that he will be addressing this kind of issues arising from the election here in Kano. Unlike that of the presidential election, of course, during the presidential election, some violence were reported there and then. But I must tell you that the magnitude of the one happening here today is actually different with what happens during the presidential election. Well, this is GSS Balaraba Halidu here in Gwale local government area of Kano State, where the NNPP governorship candidate Abba Kabir Yusuf is expected to vote. But then there are some commotion going on here at the moment, because even though voting has started in some places, but I can see by Abdullahi Abbas, the APC chairman, and also the Abba Kabir Yusuf, who is the gubernatorial candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party. So at the moment, there is a little bit of a crisis going on here, even though nobody was killed, but we heard that a number of people were injured earlier this morning, and at the moment there are presence of heavy security, police and military outside the gates of this school, and
I have been watching the television program. I'm pleased with the reaction in most constituencies. So I think we are lucky. We are going to get off lightly. Well, I do not expect anything less, because we have gone through the constitutional perspectives. We told Nigerians what we are going to do. We had a very free party election. A chairman emerged. He was experienced, 2 times governor, a senator. So there's nothing he doesn't know about Nigerian partisan politics. So I think Nigerians eventually trusted us because we mean what we say what we mean. I'm sure my party will win. What do you want? We tell Nigerians that we are going to work for them. We are going to maintain trust. We will not allow anybody knowingly to steal their resources. We'll make sure that we encourage them to send their children to school. We encourage them to have healthcare facilities. And we did our best, and I think Nigerians appreciated it.
Majority of the arrests you see are people who were directly involved in vote buying. I'm sure, as you are all aware, our mandate as EFCC is to ensure that money influence in politics is totally cut out and eradicated. And if you have been following up with public enlightenment, you would have seen where my executive chairman has been on TV saying to everyone, when you find anyone report and those numbers are there. So we got credible intelligence, and then we acted on those intelligence. And well, all over the states. Some were arrested out of the states, Omaro. Some were arrested also within Ilori, Ilori South, Ilori West. We were all over the states. All of the local government within the state, we found ourselves all over. And all of these arrests were made there. Quite a lot of money was still, is still fresh now. We're looking at and then still to start investigation into some of them. Like you can see, there are POSs. Yes, so we can't tell you these are the sum. That was exactly what it is, but they are huge. They're quite a lot. The investigation will prove all of that, like I said, but someone was arrested around there. We are an agency set up by law. We go by the provisions of the law. We work within the ambit of the law. We won't go outside the law. So we strictly will follow the provisions of the law, basically. So that's what it is.
Welcome back. That is a snapshot of what has been happening across the 36 states of the country today. As Nigerian voters go to vote, and as issues, some of them we're already familiar with, some of them just imagine come to light, all of them will be part of our discussion with our guest in the studio today. I have with me Dr. Abubakar Umar Kari, who is an associate professor of sociology, political sociology at the University of Abuja. And also with me in the studio is Ladi Bala. She is the first female, she's the president of the Nigerian Women Journalists, Nigerian Association of Women Journalists. Association of Women Journalists, yeah. But also a member of the Center for Democracy and Development. You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Lema.
Yeah, we have these two to shed quite a lot of ideas and insights on the election. But the question is, where do we start? So maybe I start with the lady, because our video also started with Adamawa State, where a lady is one of the major candidates in the election.
Yeah,
so, in Adamawa State, we have 28 women contesting for governorship elections in this election today. But only one represents a major political party, platform, and that one is Senator Aisha Binani in Adamawa State. What, as a woman yourself, what are your own expectations at that personal level as a woman?
Thank you very much. Let me start by talking generally about the election today. Being Saturday, Nigerians were all out there, to elect their governors and members that will represent them at the various houses of assemblies. And so I want to say Generally, from information we've collected, through the CDD, our supervisors across the country, shows that there was an early, startup of the process. We noticed improvement, in terms of delivery of electoral materials, commencement, and INEC officials were on ground. The polling units open on time. And generally across the country, with just little hitches in few areas of which we can overlook. So generally, I think there is serious improvement in those areas that seem to hamper the 25th February presidential and National Assembly elections. So we say kudos to INEC and the security operatives at that level, even though there are other issues, that came up in the process. However, talking about the Adamawa experience, it is gladdening, to note that in today's governorship election, we have 28 women that are contesting. So to me, it's an improvement, that women are beginning to step into the murky water of politics in Nigeria. So we are making advancements, even though at a slow pace. But I think they said little water makes an ocean. That we are now having women, stepping into the political scene. To me, is a plus, but we are still far behind. And for a woman to have emerged, as a candidate on a ruling political party platform, it is a huge plus for the quest for advancement of women in participation in governance and development of the country. So we generally celebrate the emergence of Binani, as the governorship candidate of the All Progressive Party in Adamawa State. I want to say that it did not come to us generally as a surprise, given her antecedents, in politics. She's a woman that has been in politics. You can describe her as a grassroots politician. She has been close to the people over time. And that's why when we talk about women participation, we are talking about women taking their time, to build network across board in their community, relate more with the people, let them know you. It's not something that you just wake up today and say, I want to be a governor, I want to be a councillor. But there must be that deliberate and conscious, effort to link up with the people, to let the people feel you. And then over time, that bond, will be established. And so when you come out to say you want to seek for their mandate, it becomes much easier. And that is what Binani has demonstrated over the time. She was one time a member of the House of Representatives, and she's one person that never neglects her constituency. She has done a lot in terms of providing democracy dividends in her constituency, and sometimes she goes even beyond her constituency. So in Adamawa State, she's always been likened to
some people will say
Senator Grace Jackson Bent. Adamawa has been fortunate to have produced women in the parliament. We have the likes of Binta Masi, and other women like that in Adamawa State. So for us, for people in Adamawa State, I think we must say kudos to them. And so that is why when Binani came out as a senator, and now she's advancing to contest for the exalted office.
I agree with all that you have said so far, Prof. That all that the Madam President has said so far is they agree with it. But some people was just 1 minute. Some people was I want to bring the Prof into the discussion that all of this is like campaign. On election day. The question is, what are the expectations for her today? Do we expect that based on maybe early results coming in or based on other metrics, what do we expect today? Maybe, Prof, you can go first and then we'll come back to you. Yes.
Yeah, I think I'll proceed by saying that it will be very difficult to fault Madam Ladi's assertions on Binani because they are statements of facts, actually. She's one lady who has changed the political landscape of Adamawa State. Since when she came out, and I think no words can be too much to describe her politics. And talking about campaign, I think there's no more campaign. The election has taken place, so it's not going to fetch any more votes.
Yes.
Yeah.
The polling units have closed.
Yes, the polling units have closed, and I'm sure by now probably a winner may have emerged through the process of collation. And in terms of expectation, I think it will be a great novel development if at the end of the day she wins, because it is going to change the narrative completely, particularly in terms of women political self-actualization in the country, and particularly Binani's case is unique in the sense that she's ethnically Fulani.
Yes.
Yes, and Fulani women are supposed to be timid. They are supposed to be
head.
Yes, head, not seen.
Not seen.
Yes,
Even heard, but not much.
So they are very, very conservative. And if you look at the forces rallied against her, they are very, very formidable forces. I'll mention about three. The fact that she's facing an incumbent, who has all the advantages of incumbency, the resources of the state, and so on and so forth. I've already mentioned the patriarchal nature of the kind of society that she has come from, where women political actualizations are usually limited or restricted. But she also faced formidable opposition, particularly the Islamic clerics. The Islamic clerics have really campaigned against her, bringing about some controversial Islamic injunction against the participation of women, and so on and so forth. Therefore, the very fact that she emerged as a candidate was a phenomenal political development. But if she wins, it will really change the narrative. And I think she's going to serve as a real
Reference.
As a role model.
reference and role model to women, not only in northern Nigeria, but elsewhere.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But you were talking about, okay.
I was going to add
Yes,
that
please.
the case of Binani is one isolated case that globally, Adamawa State is being being watched as to what will come out of that. He rightly, noted the fact that she is facing a strong opposition in that state, in the fact that the incumbent governor is one that you whether you like it or not, you have to give it to him that he has performed well in terms of providing dividends of democracy in Adamawa State. He has changed the landscape of Adamawa State in terms of providing roads and other infrastructure. So that whether you like Fintri or not, you have, if you have visited Adamawa like 5 years ago, and now you have to give it to him. So that factor is there, and he will only talk about the religious factor. But and again, you talk about the campaign. If you look at even the presidential election and this election, there are a lot of surprises that are coming up. Most of the time, you see all the crowd around the candidates, and you keep wondering who is actually fooling who. So it is at the end of after the ballots, or after the results have been sorted out, that we'll be able to tell who truly the people were actually rooting for. Because all the candidates, you see people anywhere, all the places that Binani went through, when you see the large turnout of people, you will just, this woman is taking the whole day. And women, I must commend women in Adamawa State, because in all her rallies, you see more of women, and they say women don't support women. But I think in this special case, we've seen women, coming out in large number in all the rallies she has had, showing their support to her. But we are still waiting to see how that translates into through vote cast and how to wear match. But like you said, it will be one of the best things that we'll celebrate in this 2023 election if Binani actually emerges as governor. And Adamawa State is one state that has always come up with surprises. That you are equally an incumbent, it does not really guarantee that you would. Like Vintri, when Vintri came on board, nobody expected that Vintri was going to emerge because we have a sitting ruling party governor in the state in terms of Bindo, APC governor. And the expectation is that he should go for a second time, and he did all he could. But the people of Adamawa State at the end of the day rooted for the PDP, and Adamawa State became a PDP state. So we still fold our hands and we keep our hands crossed and see what becomes of the translation of the
very interesting. You said that we're waiting for what the outcome will be, and then we'll be able to say. And I think we are also waiting to see if we'll be able to get the governorship candidate of the APC, Senator Aisha Binani, on this program today. We're in touch with her team, and we're looking to have her live as the program proceeds. So maybe you will have an opportunity to also engage with her when that comes. But Prof, maybe we can go back to what Madam President was saying earlier. I think it's fine for me to call you Madam President. You're a sitting president yourself, so that this early voters. It was not the early arrival of election officials and voting materials, which you mentioned earlier, but which was not the case in the presidential election just 3 weeks ago. In that election, there was a general consensus that across many parts of the country, there were the delays in some places, quite unbearable delays before these things arrived. So what changed in just 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think INEC made a commitment that it was going to learn from the mistakes of February 25th. And it also claimed that it had noted all the factors that led to the logistical fiasco of that day, so to say. So for me, I think INEC simply decided to address the problem, and they did. And these kind of things actually happen. And even on February 25th, for me, I think the problem with settling the transporters was one of the major causes of that particular delay. Remember that INEC didn't get their money in good time.
The cash crunch,
and because of the cash, the scarcity of cash, and so on and so forth, all these added to the problem. But it is quite pleasant to note that INEC went back home, studied the situation, decided to take appropriate measures, and the measures worked this time around. So much so that I think by all accounts, the accounts of the major monitors, deployment was done in good time in virtually all the states. And actual accreditation and voting also started in good time. It is also good to note that there are fewer cases of malfunction of the BVS. But above everything, I think the major improvement that was witnessed today had to do with security.
Yes.
There was serious care, very serious care, because of the nature of the race in many of the states.
Security is a strong issue in its own right, and I think we will come to dig deeper into it, because it's a local state level election, which are generally more crude than the presidential election. But Madam, he was talking about the fact that INEC improved its methods, lived up to its commitment, but also that because of the cash crunch, which was closer to the presidential election and so. But as one of the monitors, because the CDD are also major election monitors across the country, to what extent can you say that these delays in arrival of materials and officials impact on the credibility of the process, in the eyes of many voters or observers?
Yeah, INEC actually, INEC is on a voyage of redeeming its image in the eyes of Nigerians, because Nigerians lost confidence, and that led to the low turn-up of voters this time around in the governorship election. So it was imperative on INEC, to redeem its image by doing the needful. And it's like there are certain things that INEC took for granted. Because when we talk about the issue of logistics, these are issues that have been occurring in all the electoral cycles. We've always had that problem. Yes. So ideally, it is an issue that one would have expected that in our almost 24 years since the return to democracy, that these logistic issues should have been tackled headlong. But seriously, till today, we are still experiencing. Not that even the one we are talking about, it was like substantially, it was better compared to the presidential election. So I think INEC, really took time to look at those logistic issues. Like you said, we have to look at the human element too in the entire process, because we had stories of all these what do you call them? Yes, after all the arrangement, and then on the day after engaging some of the drivers, on this project, on the day of delivery, some of them will come and down their tools and shut their cars off the car and say they need additional payment apart from what has been agreed. And you can imagine at the nick of, the last minute, someone that is supposed to convey sensitive materials, non-sensitive materials or electoral materials, coming to tell you that no, the agreement that we had like 3 months ago, that I'm paying a certain amount, and you're coming on the eve of the program to tell me, even to say, sorry, we cannot accept if you will give me such an amount. So it's like more or less like a blackmail somehow. So those human elements too are not issues that INEC may want to come to the public space and be discussing that. But from the grapevine, we were able to filter some of those challenges. So I think INEC has done well, and the issue of cash, don't forget that in this election cycle, INEC, everything that INEC required was provided.
Absolutely.
Their money provided 100% ahead of the time of election. Even when there was the cash crunch thing, the CBN was directed and their money was delivered to them. INEC had its money. But those human elements that always come to play, that we cannot actually factor it, we cannot deal with them in isolation, I think, and those are some of the problems.
Thank you. Interesting. Prof, you mentioned beavers, which in the last election also malfunctioned considerably. There was not even the transmission of results now. The first component of beavers, which is to accredit the accreditation of voters, right? In the last election, there were, many complaints of failure of those machines in many parts of the country. But there have been fewer such complaints in this election. What does that mean to the process and to our transition to more electronic, more use of technology in the process so far?
It means a lot, because the greatest innovation of this 2023 election, of course, is the beavers, just like the smart card reader before it. The smooth and seamless functioning of the beavers is a major precondition for even having a good election.
Interesting.
Yeah, in the first place, because the beavers is the major instrument that is used to accredit voters and also to save the records of the vote. And therefore, if anything happens to the beavers, then the whole election will likely going to have a problem. And therefore, INEC always claims, that it has more of the machines than is required.
The number of polling units.
Yes, so that if and when necessary, where necessary, they can do replacement. And we should also go back to the human angle again. I think the improvement has to do with the fact that some of the ad hoc staff, perhaps they had their first experience with the beavers on February 25th.
Okay, yes.
But
Yes.
train.
Yes. Well, training, training and reality sometimes.
Absolutely. They don't always.
So now
they're engaging more with the technology,
of course,
so they're becoming more familiar with it. Okay.
Practice, they say, make perfect.
True.
Yeah. So I think that is also another element. Remember the smart card reader at that time, just to open a particular whatever will become
difficult.
A problem. And so the whole election will be messed up. Incident forms had to be used and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
So I think it comes with technology, particularly in our own type of society. The more you use it, the better
you come at using
yes.
it.
So I think, but beavers is a key element. In fact, an indispensable requirement for this election.
Interesting. Thank you. So,
That's actually helped, in reducing the cases of people that are not, overvoting and all that. It has actually reduced it because you must be captured, either your face or your fingerprint. And so it's unlike without the Vivas, when the Vivas wasn't there, anybody could just come and claim, and then you will not. Yes, so that has actually helped in cleaning the process of identification and equally of but the capturing, of the result and what actually.
That was exactly the question I was going to. That's the question I was going to ask you next. Actually, there is a second component to it, because as Prof said, beavers has become indispensable to credibility of elections, not just to making this process smoother, but also more credible. And Nigerians have come to have a lot of confidence in beavers itself, right? But in the last election, the second aspect of beavers didn't work at all, particularly for the presidential election. So you are in the monitoring business now. Are you aware that the transmission of results by beavers, by electronic mix, is it going on in this election today, and to what extent?
Yes, a serious improvement. As of I think 4 p.m. this evening, about almost 70% of results have been uploaded.
Interesting.
And yes, there's serious improvement actually. And just like he said, these are technology. I think what happened in the presidential election is the fact that INEC underestimated the what is on ground. INEC felt they have done everything possible and ruled out the possibility of any hitches completely. So is that height of assurances that Nigerians got, that actually made many people to have faith in the process. Because over time, the INEC national chairman has, hampered on the fact that the technology is the game changer.
Yes.
And that actually elicited, the interest of the youths, the Nigerian youths, because they felt that, if this is what we make the change, then we all have to be involved. And even those that were never interested in Nigerian politics, don't forget there's this deficit of trust and suspicions among the Nigerians and their leaders. And even the institutions, that are expected to deliver on this responsibility, INEC in particular. Nigerians have always cast this shadow of doubt on INEC, even in previous elections. But in this election, build up to this election, the INEC chairman has been consistent in assuring Nigerians, especially with the cycle elections, Osun, Ekiti, and the MOK, whatever. And that actually helped in boosting the confidence of Nigerians. And in all their explanation is that this is the game changer. Result will be uploaded at almost immediately. So, that was what
is
just
it possible to say?
So if INEC was able to like tell Nigerians that these things, should anything happen, we equally have a plan B.
Okay.
Like they did.
Like people were aware that there's plan B.
For instance, in this governorship election, they said they will be transmitting result on dual mode, either through the uploading it on the
through electronic or manually.
So you are at peace. Anyhow it comes, you accept it that okay, initially this is what they say they will do, and we are okay with that. But I think that was what heightened the expectations of Nigerians. So the moment the result and every other thing went on well, because Nigerians were okay with the entire process, even with the little hitches of late arrival and all that, Nigerians were still okay with that. If you observe what happened, until 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours later, when National Assembly's result, were seen uploaded, they were uploaded initially, and then the presidential elections result were not, and the next thing is as if the cyber went down completely. And so people were now asking questions, what is really going on here? I think that was just the missing link in the entire process. And just that little error, appear to have rubbished the whole effort that INEC put into the 2023 general elections. And that is why this governorship election, INEC had to prove itself that what happened was an error.
Interesting.
Wasn't a deliberate.
Thank you. This raises an immediate question, Prof. That if what happened in the presidential election was an error, not deliberate effort to circumvent the process, but an error, and now they are making good their commitment to upload the results, and to the extent that independent observers like yourself can confirm that 70% of the results across the 36 states have been already uploaded. Mind that in some places collation is still in progress, even as we speak. So would that improve confidence in the credibility of the previous election now, in a way that, okay, even if you had issues in the previous election, now that you have done well, maybe this means that the previous election also didn't have some of the problems and doubts that people have been raising about it?
Well, it should, but you see, we are dealing with human beings and we are dealing with perception.
Absolutely.
And perception sometimes is far stronger than reality.
Yes.
And it is in our nature to be overly pessimistic and overly suspicious. Because even the event of February 25th has been given different interpretation. All sorts of conspiracy theories have been trumped up, and so on and so forth. So it will take time to build confidence, particularly if you build a shattered confidence. A shattered confidence is usually not mended immediately. Yes, it takes time. But also, I think one of the major things that is being neglected, which happened on February 25th, was the wrong impression created that transmission of result to IREV equates to collation.
Test of credibility.
No, to collation.
Okay.
Yes, and it's not collation actually, but it is something that can be used to confirm collation
what has
done.
been collated.
Yes. So many people still have this impression, that the moment from EC80 is signed, scanned, and sent to IREV, that some mathematics will completely come into the IREV itself, and then it's to show winner and so on. So this is a widely held notion, which INEC has not done much to explain to people.
Interesting.
You see, so one of the things that perhaps will build confidence among the people is education, enlightenment. Try to explain to them, perhaps after the election, and come up with very plausible argument as to what actually transpired on February 25th. It has not been done now.
Yes.
She's only privileged to know, and she's telling us.
Yes.
But such explanations
come from official quarters.
Yes. So perhaps one of the post-election responsibilities of INEC, of course, is to rebuild the shattered confidence through bringing up persuasive explanations, arguments
regarding what really happened.
Exactly. Okay, so that henceforth, Nigerians will now come to realize what exactly happened, and then hope that in subsequent elections there will be improvement.
Thank you very much, Prof. But there is another area that also some things that we saw in this election, which CDD actually pointed to even earlier, that okay, as the electoral processes improve, other challenges come up, such as vote buying, more sophisticated or at least more varied ways of buying votes. And even as I speak, we have videos of these instances across the country, which we're going to show one or two very soon, to see how this idea of vote buying and the forms in which they are taken sometimes right across the polling booths, in the public glare for everyone to actually see what is going on. So you have this situation. There have been many reports of vote buying, people giving out utensils, collecting clothes, collecting spaghetti, indomie, sometimes even cooked indomie, and so how, from a civil society perspective, how do you view these things?
Exactly. I was going to ask you to allow me to comment because I don't want us to just have a sweeping...
Okay, we have the video now on... Can we get the audio?
This guy is in my
okay. This is... Prof, I think we can all see what has been going on. Well, the first interesting thing is the new Naira notes that are supposed to be scarce. They are not scarce to some people, are they? Because it is new Naira notes that were being dished out to voters right on the queue. What's going on?
Yeah, like I was trying to say that before we can give a pass mark to the entire process, there are other variables that we must review. Some trends, unhealthy trends, that happened in today's election. Unlike in the presidential election, even though like in CDD, some of the framing of the thematic areas that we anticipated that would define the process, where we're looking at the insecurity, we talked about institutions, and we talked about intra- and inter-party crises. We equally looked at misinformation and all those variables, violence and all that. But, compared to the presidential election, what we experienced in this governorship election is far, far higher in terms of violence. One of the things that characterized today's election in most parts of the country was violence, harassment, vote buying in broad daylight, inducement. And this was not glaring in the presidential election. Now, there was scarcity of cash. This time around, they all have
a little bit more of cash.
And that equally goes to confirm, some stories in other quarters that most of these governors, they have this money snatched in their houses. They all have the new Naira notes and the old Naira notes. And what the Supreme Court did and whatever that has happened is to enable them spend the money that they have, kept for this election. And if not, how do you explain, since the Naira redesign issue has been resolved, go to ATM, you cannot find a kobo. There's no Naira anywhere. But today, politicians are giving out money, the new Naira notes. And so it goes to say a lot about the psyche, of our political elites. And these are some of the things that are undermining the political development of Nigeria, sincerely speaking. So it is a sad development that we are witnessing this in this governorship election. And to me, it remains to be seen if Nigerians will applaud this process at the end of the day, because these are things that were not actually visible in the presidential election, but they are defining the governorship election. Beyond the vote buying, and the violence, there were killings.
We will come to the violence, because I think that's an issue, a major issue in its own right.
Suppression of voters.
And you're also correct that there have been more reported incidences of the violence in this election than in the February 25th election. But I want us to stay on this vote buying issue for a few minutes, so that Nigerians can get to have a feel of what's happening across the country. This incident is happening in Bauchi State, which incidentally happens to be your home state, So
it was, it happened in my very constituency.
Very serious. So how do you look at this?
And he's a sitting commissioner.
Yeah, it's a very, very sad development, actually. Even though this thing happened before the election, it happened yesterday, because I started seeing this,
it was not
video.
at the polling unit.
Yes, and that's exactly where I'm coming from. That there have been more inducement, more vote buying in court before the polling unit, before reaching the polling unit.
Then
polling unit.
Interesting.
And that thing has almost become a feature of our political culture. It has not started now.
Yes.
It has become entrenched. In fact, a certain aspect of it have almost been accepted as a normal thing. It is now normal for candidates and their political parties to go to villages and towns to induce women by giving them all sorts of things before election. Even the very idea of buying cars and motorcycles and sewing machines and whatever, they are all part of vote buying. Yes, and they usually take place before election day. In fact, what happens on election day is an infinitesimal
fraction
of this so-called vote buying. But my major worry about that video is actually not even the act itself, but the fact that it was perpetrated in the very presence of security agents who acted as willing accomplices, clearing the road for their principal, so to say, to be doling out this cash to people rather than arresting.
Because it's also opposition party representatives, PDP, rather than...
No, it's a ruling party in the state.
Okay, I know ruling party in the state, because in the vote buying debate at the presidential level, the opposition parties framed it as if it was only
the reality is all parties always engage in vote buying. Yes, in fact, it would be very, very wrong for anyone to assume that there is a particular party that is always guilty of vote buying. All or almost all the parties, particularly the major parties, are involved in it. But the impunity in it is my major problem.
But the policemen, some people will say they are not on official election duty. Their duty is to protect.
A policeman does not have any official time of
upholding the law.
Yes.
Thank you.
And this thing is a clear violation of the Electoral Act.
Absolutely.
With clearly spell out sanctions. And I have not read the Police Act or whatever, but I'm very sure a policeman is supposed to stop any act that is deemed to be unlawful or illegal, even if he or she is not invited. But what these gentlemen in uniform were doing was actually to aid and abet the very act.
Thank you.
So
and it's
this
criminal
is
act,
unfortunate.
actually.
Yeah, it's
a criminal act because there are sentences for vote buying as well.
But why we even talk about
Yes.
the politicians trying to induce voters, it will interest you to know that in some states, you know, in the western part, the electorate are the ones bargaining, asking the politicians that they want to sell, how much are they giving them?
Madam
They are
Ladi, even
asking-
in the north, it happens.
No, I'm
Because
just
I
giving you
remember
that we have this
in past
undocumented.
elections where voters will even put green leaves on their head, actually inviting people to come and bargain.
To come and bargain
For their votes.
Yes.
so they cast their
So
ballot.
it's an economy. I mean, it's a market on itself. There's a political economy
So it's
explanation around it.
So it's a
Yes.
vote trading rather than just vote
Yes,
buying.
it is transactional.
Because the sellers are also willing to sell.
Of course.
To some
Yes,
extent.
because
But if you
of the
notice,
weaponization
Madam Lady,
of-
okay, go on.
Of hunger. There's so much hunger in the land.
Because that's where I was going. If you notice
There's
that
so
video,
much hunger in the land.
most of the people are women.
Are women.
So women appear, because they are half of the electorate, but they appear to be the major targets of vote buying or vote trading activities. What can you say about this?
Not just women.
Okay.
You know, it is a sad development in our politics in Nigeria, sincerely speaking. The weaponization of poverty
Serious.
is the root cause of all this. The level of hunger in the land is better imagined. I'm not joking. And so, for an elderly, an adult, somebody with a family to walk up to you and say, "Can you buy a loaf of bread for me?" I'll give you an instance. I was in a shopping mall to pick some few things, and the security man there, in his uniform, walked up to me and greeted me and said, "Madam," he didn't ask me for money. He said, "Please, can you buy a loaf of bread for me?" What will make an adult to walk up to a person you have never known
He's
in your
actually
life,
working there.
and he's working there, to tell you that he has family, he will be going home, maybe he has children, he has nothing to take home. Now this is in the city. Go to the rural society and see what is happening. So the level of hunger in the land, and I think the politicians, this is what they use to impoverish the people. At the end of the day, you now turn around and you are giving them handouts. What can 2 pieces of Indomie do? But people are even willing to collect.
Yes.
As far as they are concerned, let them quench the hunger of today and trust God for tomorrow. So it is something that, sincerely speaking, as a nation, and as we have new leaders coming on board, if not for anything, for the fear of God, let there be sincerity of purpose in providing good governance in this country. We cannot continue to ride, on the people. Now they are all going back to the people. The moment everybody picks, the people hand over power to them, and they alienate themselves from the people. And so you cannot even reach out to them. In fact, the people don't even want to get to you. The moment you can provide the basics, I don't think there will be people that will want to, reduce themselves to nothing before you just for food. So, but we should make things to work in this country. People will not have to go hungry. Let there be job opportunities for our young people. Let's develop our industry. We are such a country that we are so blessed by God. Blessed both in human and natural resources.
At that point, let me bring in Prof, because you mentioned one very important thing, the weaponization of poverty. So this violence, which she was talking about earlier, which you also referred to earlier, there has been a bit more widespread, at least to the point that we can say at this level, based on news reports, social media reports and so on. In Kano, in Bayelsa, in several parts of the country, there have been many reports of thugs, snatching ballot papers, or snatching beavers machines, or even in some cases engaging in fights with either security people or other voters and so on. So does that also have something to do with the weaponization of poverty that Madam Ladi was talking about?
Well, it is one of the causes. Okay, perhaps. You know, when you are looking for the major reason behind every behavior or action, you have to look at a range of options. And one of the commonest options, of course, is the political economy option. It has to do with okay, weapon. And it makes sense because if you look at the profile of those who perpetrated such acts, in most cases, they are from poor homes, poorly educated, people of certain age brackets, in most cases unemployed, underemployed, and so on and so forth. So these are the people that you can easily mobilize simply by capitalizing on the fact that they are in need.
Interesting.
Yes, these are people who cannot afford the basic things of life. And so they are a ready-made army to be engaged by desperate politicians.
Absolutely.
Who now want to circumvent the process and capture power at all cost. And unfortunately, there have been massive and poverty, unemployment, illiteracy, and so on and so forth, which have collectively produced this scary army of youth that can actually be engaged and be unleashed. Yes, and that is what is happening. So actually that is the meaning of the weaponization of the poverty. So the poverty status of these people has now been made as a weapon.
By those who are in power.
Yes. So they are now a ready-made army to be recruited to create problems for the society. And I wholly agree with her. The solution simply is to provide good governance that will guarantee the elimination of poverty, or at least substantial reduction of poverty. So that the ranks of this army of ready-made hoodlums can be substantially reduced. But as long as these people are there, they can always be engaged by people to perpetrate nefarious actions and activities against society.
Thank you. Well, you're speaking, we got reports that Ahmed Sajo, who is spokesperson of the Adamawa governorship campaign, that of Senator Aisha Benani, is waiting for us, and we'll be asking him one of few questions. I hope you too, Prof, and our guest will also have a few questions for you. Welcome to Nigeria Decides 2023 on Trust TV, Malam Ahmed Sajo. It's good to see you again. Yeah. Actually, when we were preparing for today's program, I asked them to say, okay, can we get Ahmed Sajo? Then I was told that, you're back home in Adamawa actually preparing for the elections. So how are things looking for you?
Yes, sir.
For your campaign, for the APC governorship campaign in Adamawa State? What are the prospects, realistic prospects that Nigeria is going to have its first female governor on the morning tomorrow?
Yeah, Dr. Suleiman, let me tell you that I've never been more proud of being a Nigerian and an Adamawa person than I am today. You know me, I am an advocate of equity, I'm an advocate of fairness, justice and inclusion. And I believe that when you live in a society there should be some level of inclusion, that everybody should have a role to play. We promoted a female candidate, not because she's a female, but because we believe that she's capable and she could deliver. We promoted a candidate whose major selling points are empathy, generosity, humility. And we believe that these values are required in a nation at a point like this. And for the first time, we knew we were swimming against the tide. We knew that we had waters that are infested by sharks, but we were not afraid to venture into those waters, to swim against those. Almost there, we are almost at the threshold. I tell you that in practically every state, hello?
Yes, I said our
in
guest,
practically every local government, our candidate is leading. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Wow. So the question is, by now, you have a situation room where you would have been seeing results as they are being filed, you know, either on the IRF or those ones filed by
I'm just coming from
across the various polling units across the state. What does these results tell you at this point? Because the whole world is watching Adama with expectations.
The results are telling us that we should prepare to take over Adamawa State and install the first female governor in Adamawa State, who will incidentally be sworn in by the first female chief judge of Adamawa State. We are at the threshold of making history. We're making huge gains in very strong places like Yola North and South. We're making huge gains in strong places like Mubi North and South. We're making gains in Fufore. We're making gains. We have about 8 local governments so far where we're leading with a very wide margin. And these are some of the most decisive local governments. So we are within, but we're sure that as the trend continues, Senator Aisha Dairu Ahmad Binani will be declared the governor of Adamawa State tomorrow or the day after, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thank you very much. Do you have a question? Yes, please.
My question is, isn't it too early to begin to predict the outcome of the elections? Adamawa has 21 local government areas, and if you only have results coming out from 8 states, is that enough for you to begin to predict the win of Senator Aisha Binani? Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I'm not saying we have results from. We're not saying we have results from 8 local government. We are saying that we have a clear lead in about 8 local governments, and in all the other local governments, except 6, where we are also either neck to neck or ahead. So we know exactly. We know the patterns. We know the areas that have the large populations. We know the areas that have large voters. It's not like politics is not magic. If you know the configuration of your political entity, you can begin to permutate based on voter turnout and voting patterns. We know exactly where we're heading to, and I assure you that Senator Aisha Dairu Ahmed Binani is as good as cruising to victory.
One last question. Okay. Being the first female governorship candidate in Adamawa State, and before now, women do come out to exercise their franchise. How will you compare, the turnout of women, in today's election in Adamawa State? Because we now have a female that is running. How will you compare it? Is it that this time around we have more women, or is it just the usual? Because generally we learn that there's a little bit low turnout of people too in Adamawa State for the election. What's your assessment of the turnout of women?
I think it was huge.
Women in particular, because they now have a woman that is running.
Yeah. Yeah, it was huge. It was monumental. Don't forget that even by just being the candidate of APC, Senator Binani has changed the thinking of Adama political elite towards women. You know, the incumbent governor had to drop his deputy, who is a man, to pick a woman as a running mate, just because of the conscientization of women as a result of Binani's candidature. So we already know that women, and last election, during the presidential election, a lot of women did not come out. And when they were asked, they said, look, this is not our election. Our election is coming next 2 weeks. So this election, a lot of women came out, and we were aware right from the onset that there may have been some efforts to stop women from participating in today's election, and we put some safeguards. There were areas that we were told that women were told to vote only after men had voted. We complained to INEC. INEC changed that and said, look, the rule is that they are equal. They should be allowed equal time. There are places also where we were told that we anticipated that there will be some threats of violence, and we know women are mostly peaceful people. They may not stand there and wait while the situation was getting tense. So we had identified such flashpoints. We've made adequate arrangement to have security men, make sure that the places are safe enough for the women to come out. We knew that there will be a huge turnout of women, and the women did not disappoint. They came out hugely. And let me tell you, you were talking about weaponization of poverty. I tell you, beyond weaponization of poverty, there was nothing they did not weaponize at this election. There was religion, there was region, there was ethnicity. Some group of misguided Islamic clerics were given money to go around from mosque to mosque preaching that a woman cannot be governor. We had a lot of those challenges, but people said no. And then today we saw it where, people brought out money to buy votes. People collect the money from them and give it to people who they asked to vote for APC. It was all kind of very, very interesting, not from the gender perspective alone, but from the breaking barriers of a lot of other political myths that exist in this country. We are proud that we have got the first woman that had risen up above the ladder to break the glass ceiling. We hope that Aisha Binani's governorship will open doors for more women to be governors in the next cycle of elections.
Thank you very much, Maila Ahmed Sajo, former Commissioner of Information in Adamawa State and spokesperson of the Senator Aisha Binani Campaign Council in Adamawa State. We wish all the candidates the very best. Thank you, and we hope to see you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope those of you on the program will come for our inauguration, for the inauguration of Aisha Binani. It's going to be quite historic.
Okay, but in the meantime, we wish all the candidates the very best. Thank you very much, and see you soon when you return. Thank you. So he raised one or two key issues, particularly regarding their expectations that Adamawa North, Adamawa South, that's Yola and Jimeta, and then Mubi North, Mubi South, that they are leading in these areas, but also leading in eight other local governments across the state. What does it mean, Prof, for the outcome of this? Because like Madam said earlier, not just in Adamawa State or just Nigeria. People all around the world are waiting to see whether some miracle can happen for a woman in a governorship election, whether the glass ceiling that he was talking about can be...
Well, as usually said by lawyers, okay, let's assume without conceding.
Yes.
Because yes. I don't think it will be fair to swallow what he said.
As a campaign spokesperson.
Yes. So, but let's assume that it is true. It makes sense. As he says, they are looking at patterns. And by now, I'm sure every party has a situation room. They must have agents and one or two other persons at every polling unit who will be feeding them with the information. In most cases, contestants and their parties and their people, they know the outcome of elections long before every other person.
Yes, true.
Okay, no. Yeah. But usually weaponize the information itself.
Yes.
And maybe engage in a nocturnal manipulation, either to change it in one way or the other, or to begin to prepare to subvert the process, or to create stalemate, or to begin to anticipate litigation and so on and so forth. But on election day like this, it is always good to follow trends and patterns. And if you do that, you can make realistic projections. So perhaps that was what he was doing. Perhaps also it was all hot air. We'll only know within the next 24 hours.
All of which are possible, you know.
All things are possible.
The realistic projections possible, but also hot air are possible because he represents a side in the election. Maybe if we spoke with the PDP person, he would have a different outlook
without conceding.
on things. And actually, we tried to reach the PDP people as well. And even as the program is continuing, we are also working to be able to get spokespersons of the PDP governorship candidate in Adamawa State to also come online and tell us what they are expecting, because that state is interesting for the reasons that we have discussed earlier. But Madam President, to proceed with this discussion, another place where patterns and trends, as Prof put it, you know, where it's interesting is also Lagos. Right now, you know, where most Nigerians will be interested in seeing what the result is looking like in Lagos. What are your expectations based on early, you know, things that are filtering so far?
Unfortunately, Lagos this time around, things are really coming out of Lagos are not so good. The reports that are coming out of Lagos, because already we have cases, incidences of violence in Lagos, profiling of a particular ethnic group, and open intimidation, harassment, threats, you know, and even some polling units, you have thugs coming to snatch ballot, papers, and even journalists. A rice crew were attacked in Lagos. Their drone was hijacked, you know, and they were even taken by the police. So the Lagos story is the situation this time around. We really cannot tell. We don't know if it will reflect what happened during the presidential election, but what happened in Lagos, some of the polling units, you see voters suppression. You know, intimidation. You hear openly some people saying, if you're not going to vote for APC, just leave this place, just like it happened in some pockets of polling units in Lagos during the presidential. But this time around, there is increase in the number of violence in Lagos, attack and intimidation. And I think INEC has even postponed election in 10 polling units in Lagos as we speak. So we don't know what the result will be like in Lagos, whether it will reflect the will of the people or not. Because widespread of
people would say that
voter
such comments are probably an exaggeration, frankly.
No, they are not. Really?
Okay.
I think she put it even mildly.
Okay.
I think what happened in Lagos tomorrow, the watch of Obasanjo was like a K-leg working for this election. There was systematic voter intimidation and suppression. But beyond that, I think it's a huge setback for two things. One, for inter-ethnic harmony and national integration. It goes deeper than this election. And I can assure you that the vibrations from happenings in Lagos today will be heard for many years, many election cycles to come. And the second major problem about what happened in Lagos, I hope it will not create a phenomenon of deliberate ethnic profiling and voter suppression as a weapon for election. Because things like that are likely to be replicated, particularly where there are no consequences. There was clear case of ethnic profiling, which is very, very bad.
Exactly. But the ethnic profiling started even before the election.
Yes.
If you follow on social media, on even mainstream media, particularly Lagos is a case right now of like a sort of war, political war between Yoruba ethnic group and Igbo ethnic group. There's no need trying to,
Yeah, these are the two major ethnic groups.
Exactly, but the federal government,
in context, yes,
the federal government, has been aware of these developments, these profilings that we're talking about, rightly bringing out, has been aware of that. And that's where the security agencies will come in, because the whole essence of having police and other security agencies during election is not just to prevent violence from breaking out, but also to ensure that voters are not intimidated or prevented from voting, to enable them vote. So what's your assessment of the police and security agencies with regards to Lagos specifically, if all of these reports that we're getting are still happening or happened earlier today?
Yeah, earlier we did said that the security situation was substantially okay, but there is the number of personnel allocated to each polling unit is minimal. One personnel to a polling, not even one personnel to a polling unit. Ideally, that should be the case. But in this governorship election, it's not the case. You see one personnel roving between 2 or 4 polling units. And then these miscreants, when they know that there is no, in fact, they are not even afraid of security operatives. They are not afraid of them. And you just cannot explain why, when it comes to the security operatives taking drastic measure at the point in terms of providing protection, they equally tend to try to save themselves, from the problems, because they are dealing with thugs. Safety first. Sometimes I want to believe that this is how Nigerian police tend to think this time around. Safety first. Just like for us journalists, we always tell you that no report is worth dying for. Absolutely. You are alive first. You must be alive to tell the story. For instance, today, in the case of the Arise crew that we are talking about, Lagos. The police were there. It was at the palace, at the front of a particular palace, and there was security. So what happened? How come this journalist, a crew of a reporter, and the reporter and the cameraman came under attack? They were injured. And we saw the drone, in the hands of the police, and they were taken. Who attacked them? How did the drone, find itself in the hands of the police? Is it that the police ran after the thugs and collected these are questions that are still seeking for answers, So even journalists are not spared in this process. We didn't have this incident in the presidential. But today, in today's election, Channel's reporter was attacked. Yes. Arise, Premium, whatever, in Kano came under attack. And even in Lafia, a journalist was attacked. Why? And there are policemen that ought to provide the necessary protection for journalists in covering election. We don't have any other security. Journalists should rely on them. But the case is not it, sincerely speaking. So we don't really know. We have police assuring us, that they've deployed enough security. Yes, it's not about deploying the security. We just watch a video where we see policemen standing while money vote trading, was going on. Yes. So there's so much deficit of efficiency when it comes to providing adequate security that will safeguard the lives of Nigeria. And that is why you see a lot of fear among Nigerians that a policeman is in a place. An average Nigerian does not believe that policeman will protect his or her interest.
Yeah. Prof, this also happened in Kano as well. In fact, in Kano, we see situations where thugs were even fighting with police. In some instances, even driving away police, security officials in the state. But a milder version of what happened in Lagos. No ethnic dimension to this, but the ideological and political party differences in Kano is also as high as the issues that are happening in Lagos. So how do you view things coming out of Kano with regards to the processes and expected outcomes so far in Kano?
Yeah, I think it is more helpful to look at it in the context. Okay. And the context is this. This violence in Lagos, okay, for instance, we have to use 3 words, okay, to qualify them. They are organized, they are deliberate, and they are systematic.
Absolutely.
So, to be fair to the police, honestly speaking, police were overstretched in this kind of context. But if you look at the security architecture around election, beyond the police, another layer of security is supposed to be there 2 kilometers from the polling unit.
DSS.
The military. So these are the people who should have checkmated these hoodlums even before they reach the polling units. And in voter suppression, the major objective is to stop people from even turning
out to vote.
Yes, most of these things in Lagos did not actually happen at the polling units.
They happen in neighborhoods.
Yes,
where people
before
actually
the polling units. So you cannot entirely blame the police. Beyond the fact that yes, the police are the primary responders to such issues, but they are not the only ones. And in election security, a policeman or 2 are deployed at the polling units. They are not armed. Some meters, you have some that are armed, and 2 kilometers after soldiers. So if it is blamed, the entire security architecture and not necessarily the police should be blamed.
Thank you. I think it's the time we usually take views from our viewers as well. As you are watching, our phone lines have just opened, and we're happy to hear from you. What do you think of the elections, the processes, and the expected outcomes so far as they have occurred in your state or in your neighborhood today? Welcome to Nigeria Decides. When you pick up your phone and make a call, you tell us your name and where you are calling from, and then you can make your contribution or ask a question. We're here for you. Thank you. So, Madam, in addition to what Prof said, that these things happened within neighborhoods, and long before it even comes to what do you call polling units where elections actually take place, because the essence of voter suppression is to prevent people to get to the polling unit in the first place, But what about the desperation of the politicians themselves, How does that contribute to this kind of issues?
Yeah, just like he said, this for the case of Lagos and even Kano, most of the violence are planned ahead of time. For instance, how do you explain the president-elect not winning Lagos State? That is one state he prides himself as the leader, and yet during the presidential, he lost Lagos State.
Absolutely.
And we have an incumbent governor.
Just a moment, we have a caller. Okay. We have Isaac from Bauchi on the line. Welcome to Nigeria Decides 2023, where we're talking about the governorship and state houses of assembly elections today. Just go ahead and make your contribution or ask a question. You're welcome, Isaac. Go ahead. Oh, we've lost Isaac. Yes, you were talking about the president-elect cannot stand the idea of losing election in his own
the dynamics are not the same as it used to be previously. Things have changed in Lagos. And it's like as if there is a battle for the soul of Lagos. The Yorubas are claiming to be the owners of Lagos. Even among the Yorubas, a particular section claims to be a more...
Isaac is back. Thank you for calling, Isaac. Thank you also for trying again and again. Just go ahead and make your contribution. Go ahead, straight.
Yeah, my contribution I just want to appreciate the security personnel and the effort of the INEC this time around in the election. Here in Bauchi State, everything has been peaceful. The INEC officials came out in time, distributed all the INEC material, election materials, though the turnout was very discouraging, but later in the day was encouraging. I actually want to appreciate the government, the INEC officials, and the security personnel on ground. Everything has been peaceful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Isaac, for calling, and we hope to hear from you again on another edition of Nigeria Decides. Thank you, all the viewers, and we're looking forward to hearing from you today and tomorrow as the Nigeria Decides program continues. Yeah, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, like I was saying, you know, in the last election, the emergence of our Labour Party as the winner of the presidential election in Lagos was a huge surprise. And I think that's one of the takeaway for the 2023 general elections. And so in the governorship election, naturally the governor that seeks re-election will be under undue pressure. We have the PDP on the other side that are equally strong if their campaign is anything to go by. And the Labour Party governorship candidate sees it just
we have another caller. Ibrahim from Bidda, Niger State. Yes, go ahead, Ibrahim. Thank you for calling and welcome to Nigeria Decides 2023. Just go ahead and make your contribution or ask a question. Oh, we have lost Ibrahim. Ibrahim, try to call again. We would like to hear from you. Yes. So you were.
So all that will generate a lot of anxiety, you know, among all the contestants. And so we now have a president-elect on the APC platform. It's natural. Judging by Nigerian political.
I get your point that the desperation will be even worse because of the disparity between being governor-elect and losing your state. And so you cannot afford to lose at the state government level. But some would say that the dynamics for presidential election and governorship elections across the country, not just in Lagos, sometimes they are different. You know, they are not always the same. Do you think that can be a factor this time around?
Well, the dynamics may not be the same.
Maybe just before you ask, because once the callers start coming, the callers have the right of way. Yes, you can go ahead, tell us your name and then where you are calling from. Oh, it appears like we lost that caller. Yes, please.
Yeah, so the dynamics may be different, but the ripples will likely cascade from one election to the other, and that's exactly what happened. In addition to what she said, beyond the severe injury done to the
to the ego
of the of the president-elect and his team. I think also the triumphalism of those who won the election compounded the problem. They went about celebrating their victory and some utterances allegedly made by them provoke the other side.
Let's just clarify one or two things. Triumphalism by those who won the election. There were two sets of camps, both of whom won the election.
Those who won the election in Lagos State.
At the federal level?
No, at the state level.
At the state level?
I'm talking of the Labour Party.
The Labour Party, good. Who won the presidential election in Lagos?
Yes, so Labour Party now started to see itself as a natural replacement of the
current
APC and the Tinubu dynasty in Lagos.
Interesting.
Yes, and the way the way they went about
the showdown coming.
Yes, actually they did it somewhat provocatively.
Okay.
Particularly if you are current in the social media. well, it is natural to celebrate, but also in celebrating, you have to be careful. If someone is down, he's more likely to react violently.
Interesting.
So the supporters of the other side now prepared for war, because actually that was what happened today.
Exactly.
Okay. So we have a caller from Wari in Delta State. Please tell us your name and then go ahead to make your contribution or ask your question. Yes.
Okay, my name is Lumi Ilya calling from Wari Delta State.
Your name is?
Lumi Ilya calling from Wari Delta State.
Please go ahead, Lumi, yes.
Okay, I want to commend the INEC official. They really bring the materials early on, and we vote peacefully. Everyone was peacefully calm, and the election conducted well. We really appreciate the INEC official and the security personnel in Delta State.
Thank you very much, Limi from Wari in Delta State. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you keep joining us on this show as Nigerians decide the fate of their fate in this democratic dispensation in this 2023 general election. So, Prof, you were saying that triumphalism by those who won the presidential election in
and the
State,
triumphalism also includes a deliberate change of narrative. For me, Tinubu was defeated in Lagos not necessarily by the Igbos alone, but the narrative that came out of it, which was deliberately spun not necessarily by the victors, was that the Igbos were plotting to take over Lagos and they must be stopped. So it was a deliberate narrative to win converts back
to APC.
Yes, to APC, and also to incite the Yorubas to resist,
to play the ethnic card.
An alleged deliberate plot by the Igbos to take over Lagos. Because what happened today was actually...
Just a moment. We have another caller, Emmanuel from Wari. Thank you for calling and thank you for joining us, Emmanuel, on Nigeria Decides 2023. Please go ahead and make your contribution or ask a question about how the election, about anything regarding this 2023 general elections. Yes.
In the first place, I greet all of you that making this program.
Thank you.
What I saw in the daily here now, that is where I call, because I have seen some people giving recommendation to the INEC and confirming that the election is free and fair. But from my own eye and view, I not see this election as free and fair. I saw where they are dividing money in the daily, what I'm seeing there. I saw some people dividing money in the police station, and there is policemen there around there. And I still saw where people are fighting in the police station, where policemen are there. At the same time, I noticed that there are some people who have been killed, like Labour. I saw for the scheme there where they write a Labour Party candidate was shot dead. We call this election free and fair. That is my question there. Can we call it free and fair when we see something that happened in some area like that? And not for the whole federation, no. All this is for some section of area, not the whole federation.
Thank you, thank you, Emmanuel. But besides that, that where you witnessed this happening, do you have reports that similar things happened in Delta State? Because earlier we had a caller from Delta State who said things were free and fair in his locality. What can you tell us and Nigerians viewing this program right now about the election in Delta State overall as a whole, based on what you might have heard from people around you?
In Delta State, in some area, I'm not a journalist, but I listen for radio and I watching for television. I saw so many places in Delta State where similar things. Where there's one area, villages, local area where they call Eruene, where they say they burn ballot box and destroy voting cards and so many things. Crisis there. So I'm not a journalist to give account of the whole, what happened in the whole federation. But from what I'm seeing, I cannot call this election free and fair.
Thank you.
As you see me now, I not belong to any party. I not belong to any party.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for being a journalist for 5 minutes on this show, because you have, by giving us this report, you have actually been a journalist, at least for this minute, and we appreciate so much. And we hope you join us once again while this show continues over this week. So, Prof, the issue that he raised is important, you know, because you see in the same state, you have one voter saying that things are fine, another voter saying that things are not so fine. So how do we explain these things, you know, where you have such diametrically opposed views from voters within the same state?
Yeah, I think each of them was talking about what he saw. So for us to make a statewide conclusion or whatever, we have to look at the state as a whole. The accounts of two persons will not be enough. Each of them spoke from the point of view of what they witnessed personally. Yeah, there could be other perspectives and opinions about what transpired. This thing is a developing story. We are still getting more reports, hearing more things. The media cannot get everything, but the people themselves would gradually come out and begin to narrate what actually happens. Then from there, we can have an aggregate position of what happened where.
Thank you. Interesting, but some of I think this takes us to some more volatile states, particularly within northern Nigeria.
I need to I'm sorry. I just want to make an impression, correct an impression. I think we never said on this show that I don't think we have rated the outcome of the election and said it is generally good. We didn't say so. But we commended the commencement of the process in terms of delivery, opening of polling units, you know, on time, and arrival of materials and INEC officials. These were the things we said were you know, they were well taken care of by INEC. But then we now went ahead, we identified some of the hitches in specific areas.
Okay, Abdullah from Kefi, please. You're welcome to Nigeria Decides 2023. Just go ahead and make your contribution or ask a question.
Thank you, Suleiman. You see, one thing that I just want to chip in regarding election. Election is a process. And when you are discussing results from a process, you need to look at it holistically. Of course, individual reports from you, this one says this, this one says that, this one says this one contradicts the other. Of course, it helps. It's a collection of information you are gathering. However, generally speaking, the major challenge of Nigeria's election, especially this one that we are witnessing, is security. You see, the security situation has worsened from the last election to this election, if you observe. So I think there is need, and people cannot blame INEC on security. You see, the issue is that there is need for our security men and women to be up at the election. Because a situation whereby thugs will just come into a polling unit and destroy things and get away with and walk away free. I think this is an indictment on our security. So the issue is more, you can see there is statistics this time around. But however, security situation has worsened. You understand? So I think people should build INEC, of course, to an extent, by what? By improving their systems. And it is clear that there is improvement in their systems. So the point here is, let us de-emphasize the issue of blaming INEC on everything. No. INEC is to conduct election. and they are doing their best in conducting the elections. Are stakeholders doing what they are supposed to do to make the election free, fair, and credible? The questions. Is everything that INEC does on election? No. Therefore, there is need to talk on security situation, security challenges. Of course, it's a general problem in Nigeria. However, when it comes to elections, sensitive issue like this, I think security should be up and going. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very much, Mali Abdullahi from Kefi in Nasarawa State. Thank you for your views. So not just INEC. We cannot lay all the blames on INEC, but other stakeholders, particularly security, in the process. We've just about come to the end of the show now, so maybe I will just final comments. There are states where a lot of people were expecting, or at least had fears, that maybe violence might break out because of what has been going on previously, particularly in the Northeast, for example. You had Gombe State, right, where there had been skirmishes between PDP and APC. Yes. So far, we have not had any issues. Plateau State also, Nasarawa State also, even Benue as well. So what's going on that we don't have these security incidences in the north appear to be quite located to just one area, even Katsina, despite the banditry and all these things that are going on there. So far, the reports we had in all these places, maybe you can use this as closing remarks.
So for the North, if you notice, even during the presidential elections, there was no much violence. I think basically for the North, in our analysis, what trended more in the North is the issue of vote buying, and inducements. Yes. And then, and pockets of violence in places like Kano in the Northwest. For the Northeast, there was a record of snatching of ballots papers in some part of Yobe State. And so to me, I think the people generally conducted themselves well. They equally understand that they need to do the needful so that the process can be seen to be credible.
Thank you.
That's my thinking. But in some states in the southwest, southeast, there is in Ebonyi, for instance, a chairman of a local government shot an agent, a party agent, PDP, to death.
That's serious.
It has to do with some governors that are leaving office. They want to install their people there. And so that desperation, to a large extent, is what has resulted to some of this crisis, violence.
Thank you very much, Madam Ladi. Final comments regarding this issue of role, security, and the election process in general.
Well, security is a key factor in election. We can never get it right if our security personnel are not up and doing. And I think one of the major downsides of this election was the collapse of the security architecture in certain areas. Although the pleasant surprise is that against widespread projections, in certain states that problems were expected, they didn't happen. I think that was simply some kind of luck. Like Bauchi State. Bauchi was very, very tensed. In fact, there were deaths, about 1 or 2 in
before the election.
Yes, in a local government area, also in Akuyam, in Mr. Local Government, and so on. But today, all was quiet. The same thing with Kaduna. We commend them for that. It wasn't because of the security personnel. But for me, the collapse of security is always first and foremost the function of the political class. It is actually the political class in their desperation. The candidates and their parties and their supporters, they are the people who create these problems. The security personnel are only, their role is to contain the problem. So we have to call on members of the political class to eschew do or die politics. That's the only thing that can stop this.
The political class must eschew do or die politics, and that's the only thing that can stop this kind of security breaches during our elections. I think this is where we come to the end of the show. Professor Abubakar Kari, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to have you here again tomorrow for continuing analysis of the election, because by that time maybe we'll have more about the results, and then we can look at issues like voter turnout. Thank you, Madam Ladi, also President of the National Association of Women Journalists. I wanted to get it correct this time around.
Nigerian Association, actually.
Of Nigeria, yeah. So thank you also for joining us. And we also hope that you'll be able to join us tomorrow again as we analyze more of these results as they come. Thank you also, our viewers, for staying with us. This is where we draw the curtain to the program and where we call it a day or even a night. And we hope that you will join us tomorrow when we meet. But before we meet tomorrow again, we'll leave you with this. The greatest strength of any people lies in their unity. So, as the outcome of the polls emerge, Nigerians must unite for the good of the country. And we hope that you think around that and do just that. Thank you. I am Suleiman Suleiman. Good night.